everyone, and welcome to the Husky Hotseat, the show for students, parents, and staff to get to know the Hubble community. I'm your host, Eric Elftmann. Each week on Husky Hotseat, you and I get to sit down with a member of our Hubble community to ask them the answers to the tough questions. This will be our last podcast before we break for the summer, so of course we had to go big. In fact, I'm here with my boss's boss, so depending on how this show goes, it could be our last episode. Husky Hotseat is excited to welcome Dr. Jeff Schuler to the show. Dr. Schuler has been an educator for 33 years and has been District 200 superintendent for the last 12 years. And if you're not sure what a superintendent is, well, we'll get into that a little bit. Dr. Schuler has worn a lot of hats over the years, including working as an elementary teacher, middle school principal, and as a human resources director before becoming superintendent. Dr. Schuler, thank you so much for joining us on Husky Hotseat. Can you just tell us a little bit about where you're from originally?
Absolutely. Grew up in St. Louis. So I spent actually first 18 years in St. Louis all the way up through high school. And then went from there to college in Indiana University, and then made my way up to the Chicago area after I graduated college.
Okay, this is a St. Louis question I just came up with on the spot. What's the deal with Emo's Pizza?
St. Louis pizza, it's all about the cheese. They use a very unique cheese that if you are not familiar with it, you haven't had it, it's generally a little bit off-putting for people at first and until you get used to it. Certainly was for my wife and folks that I've taken down to St. Louis for the first time.
That was my impression as well. That's what made me think of it. All right. I know that you have a real heart for the classroom and that you have a lot of educators in your family. Can you describe a little bit how you got your start in teaching?
Absolutely. So in college, I actually did not go to college certain what my major was going to be. I went with a lot of thoughts or ideas, ended up in education. So my mom was a teacher. She retired as a fourth grade teacher. My older sister, is a teacher, and so it definitely was in the family. The thought was, I remember my mom taking me to her school quite a bit when I was a kid, so spent a fair amount of time in her classroom watching the work that she did. So I think it was just sort of always there and kind of in my mind. And so as I got to college and started exploring ideas, I pretty quickly settled on education.
And what subject matter did you start in?
I was when I was an elementary major, and then I had a middle school endorsement in math and science. So I actually got my first teaching job teaching elementary school. So I did two things. One, I was an accelerated teacher, taught kids kindergarten through fifth grade at the time that were in an accelerated or gifted program, and then also taught computers. It was when computer was its own special at that time at the elementary level, and so I taught kids all across the elementary school computers.
Okay, just to date this a little bit, do you remember what computer it was you were using back then?
I don't remember actually which one that it was, but it was in the very early days. Okay. So there were a small handful of programs that we were using. It was really a lot of typing as much as anything else. But
you got to middle school and you were teaching math?
I was. So, I had an opportunity to join the district where I got my first job, which was up by Arlington Heights. They were opening a brand new middle school, and so I had an opportunity to join the faculty in the first year that the school was open. It was a middle school that actually was pioneering a whole lot of new things. So it was kind of the onset of the teaming movement in middle schools. So we were doing a lot of interdisciplinary work, some unique things, both with the schedule at the school, kind of the grading processes. So I just kind of from a ground level got to help open a brand new middle school, which was unique, and spent 4 years actually at that school teaching largely math and science.
And from there, what leads someone to go from teaching up the ranks to superintendent?
Yeah, so it's that's not an immediate jump from classroom to that. I actually spent about a year in that district as an instructional coach. So I had an opportunity to spend time working with teachers across the district, and then found my way into an administrative position, actually as an assistant principal at a middle school, and kind of moved from there. So spent really about 7 years between assistant principal and principal at the middle school level, and then moved to a district level position as an assistant superintendent overseeing a human resource office, and then moved into a superintendent role from there.
Once you kind of started down that road, did you always see superintendent as like the ending of the path, or was that just kind of how it happened?
Yeah, never. I don't. There was never a point in my career where I said, boy, my end goal is superintendent. Truth be told, I think early on when I was a principal, I did go to get my superintendent endorsement and doctorate at the same time. And I really did that just under the belief that I'm kind of a believer that I didn't ever want a certificate or an endorsement to hold me back. I wanted to make sure I had whatever I needed to be available if an opportunity came, and that's really how it happened. In the district where I was the assistant superintendent, an opportunity opened up as a superintendent retired, and I happened to be there and had the right credential.
Right circumstances, right credentials, perfect. Okay, Dr. Schuler, this show is called Husky Hotseat for a reason. So I'm going to ask a question I assume most of my listeners, students, really want to know. Heck, I guess many teachers probably want to know too. How do you decide when to have an e-learning day? Is there secret formula, cabal of superintendents texting each other 2 a.m? What's going on?
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
And probably a question that I'm asked most often, certainly when I'm in and around school. So I do certainly have a network of superintendents in the area that I work closely with when weather is coming in, and we know that we have weather coming in. I have a lot of tools available to me to really try to understand weather prediction. It's certainly not an exact science, and so you can't rely solely on that. But bottom line is that we watch conditions, really 2 different things. If it's snow that's coming, almost always on a day where we're concerned about snow, I'm actually up and out driving roads with the rest of our team at about 4 a.m. to actually really see what conditions look like. Bottom line is, I like to see firsthand what road conditions look like, and I'll ultimately make a decision if I think it's safe for us to put both buses on the roads, cars on the roads. We certainly also work closely with the villages, cities to understand what their public works department is seeing in the morning, and that's ultimately the decision point. Working with a network of superintendents, we trade, share information, and kind of arrive at what we think is the best decision for our district. Cold, a little different. Usually if the concern is around cold, we have a pretty clear formula that we follow through the National Weather Service, and that typically corresponds with the type of warning that they're issuing, which makes that one a little cleaner decision than snow.
I like the firsthand knowledge, though. That's pretty smart of you guys to do that. I appreciate that. Can you give just a basic description for our student listeners who might not have even known you existed until this podcast, like what the superintendent oversees, which I assume is a lot?
Yeah, so I'll always explain it really in this way. The way that education works in Illinois is that a local community elects a Board of Education. The Board of Education is responsible for setting priorities, setting policy based on the community. my job, I'm actually their only employee. So the Board of Education hires one person, and that's the superintendent, who's responsible for overseeing the district, administering the district, align with the priorities that the board has set. So my job is to hire all of the administrators, the principals in the district to one, oversee all of our schools, two, to oversee kind of the key areas of work within the district. So the business office, the human resource office, all of our student support programs. So my job is to really kind of serve as the chief executive for the school district and have a little bit of a hand in everything.
I read an interview where you said that you didn't think there was an average day for a superintendent. So if that's the case, can you tell us about the craziest day you remember on the job?
Yeah, so I think one fair, right? Like the bottom line is that I think I go into most days probably with about 70% of the day scheduled, like that I know what's in front of me, and then the other 30% usually is based on what's happening that day. So certainly if we have any type of crisis in any of our schools that we have to attend to, or just something unplanned, I'm trying to think back to the craziest of days, and I guess what I would say was probably I'm gonna take people back to maybe sort of a little bit of an unpleasant time. Probably the craziest day that I can remember is the day right in front of the pandemic, where we kind of figured out that schools are going to be shutting down for a window of time, and we knew that we had probably about 48 hours and a weekend to try to figure out how we were going to transform a school system and figure out how we were going to be prepared to try to continue to provide some education in a time and a circumstance where we just didn't know a whole lot.
Yeah, that was pretty surreal. I can't imagine being on the other end trying to make all the decisions, let alone I can remember sitting in the auditorium hearing that announcement. Make sure you grab all your stuff because we are not coming back on Monday. It was pretty wild times. I know that you and your team have spent a good amount of time and effort working on morale in the district, especially after COVID. Can you take a moment and just first tell us why this is so important to you? And secondly, what sort of things have you noticed from the feedback that you've received?
So I think the why it's important, plain and simple, education is a people business, right? Everything that happens through human interaction, right? The interaction of a teacher and a student, the interaction of staff and students. And so we can put any improvement plan that we want in place. We can introduce any new program that we want to. Ultimately, it's our staff that are carrying out those opportunities. I say every time we meet with the staff over at the school service center or the district office that in District 200, you either teach or you make teaching happen. It's one of those two. What I know is that I am not one of, nor are any of our staff, we are not directly in the classroom doing the work with our students. And so the best of idea is not a good idea if staff are not in a place where they're feeling most effective and impactful in the work that they're doing. And that centers with, honestly, how they feel about the work that they're doing, how they feel about the support that they're getting. And so when we came, especially out of the pandemic, there were a lot of discussion points at the time about the need to get kids back on track in terms of learning progressions, learning acceleration, attendance concerns, students that needed to be reconnected to school. And again, at the end of the day, that was not going to happen unless staff felt good about the work that they were doing. And I guess at its core, to the second part of the question of what have we learned, what we've learned is that sometimes what we think it means to have a staff member feel good about, feel connected to the work, it may not match kind of where our teachers are at. And so I think the process of focusing on morale has just helped us collectively make sure that that's always in our forefront, that culture and relationships are going to guide everything we do. And that's actually never changed, right, in my time in education.
Yeah. I know your job is not exactly 9 to 5. There's lots of other community events and things you do. What are some of the favorite things you get to do as superintendent? I mean, if it were me, I'd love like flipping the coin at the Wheaton North, Wheaton South game or something like that.
Yeah, I think anything that I get to do that involves watching our students in our schools, certainly love it. Anytime I get an opportunity to sit down, talk to a group of students, I love it. Right at the end of the day, the work that we do centers ultimately on an outcome, and that outcome is usually a student succeeding in something, performing in something, and so those are by far my favorite days and opportunities you mentioned. I do spend a fair amount of time out in the community at community events, kind of community network opportunities, and really for me, that is a lot about just understanding how the community feels about the schools and the work that we're doing. I love those opportunities because what I generally hear, and actually most often hear as I'm out in the community, is that the community feels good about the work that schools are doing. We're not perfect. We have opportunities to get better every year, but as I ask our community and ask our parents about the work that we're doing, they feel good about our schools.
Do you have people like in line at Starbucks ever come up to you and want to start talking community stuff? Yeah,
I do. It's impossible to be out in the community, and most of that generally comes from a good place. I've had the pleasure of getting to meet a lot of people in the community, and so it's pretty rare that I'm out and about that I don't see somebody that has a connection back to the schools, and I don't mind that. I appreciate that.
So we're going to have one more question before we go to a quick break here. People haven't heard, you've announced you'll be retiring after the next school year. So on your way out the door, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've taken away from your time here as superintendent?
Biggest lesson is that it is all about relationships. Again, nothing happens without genuine and authentic relationships in our schools. And I remember being struck by that 12 years ago when I started in District 200 and just kind of made my first tour of the community and our schools. What I heard most often as I asked people, what are you most proud of in District 200? There were deep and true, authentic relationships. Kids that loved their teachers, teachers that loved their students, parents that had a deep appreciation for our staff, our teachers, our staff that had a deep appreciation for the community. And that hasn't changed. That, I think, has been what I would call the secret sauce, kind of the secret weapon of what's made this community great, and it's never changed. It's been foundational.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Portrait of a Middle Schooler. Hey, Huskies, we are back with our guest, Dr. Schuler, and I hope you're ready for one of our favorite segments, Portrait of a Middle Schooler. Strange fashion choices? Absolutely. Weird hobbies? Oh, yeah. Old nicknames you forgot about until this moment? Well, let's see what we can come up with. Okay, Dr. Schuler, I want you to describe your middle school self, maybe what you looked like, what activities you did. This would be a great time to drop any embarrassing stories you have, if you'd like.
Yeah, certainly. I wish I could remember a lot of those embarrassing stories. I'm not sure that I can. I, as a middle school kid, loved soccer. What I remember was spending as much time as possible with a soccer ball on my foot. It just was what I remember doing a whole lot of in and around that time. I think I was just sort of your probably typical, maybe awkward at times, middle school kid that I I did okay in school, but I don't remember my middle school years necessarily being super memorable for any one thing other than kind of my transition between elementary school and high school.
Did you have any teachers that stuck out to you that you recall from that time?
I do. I remember one. I remember having a math teacher. So from I guess a learning perspective, I always thought that I enjoyed math. I was decent at math, but I remember in middle school having a math teacher. I actually don't truly remember his name, but I remember his face and the experience, and it really helped me to build even more confidence in myself as a learner. That was probably the area even through high school where I excelled the most, and I think it was based on that middle school experience and a teacher that unlocked that for me.
Awesome. Okay, well, knowing what you know now as an adult, what piece of advice would you give your middle school self?
I would have told myself to enjoy the moment. I think I hear often now, right, this lens that sometimes when you're in a moment, the days feel incredibly long, but in the end, the years are going to be incredibly short. So I would have told myself just to enjoy the moment that I was in and not worry a whole lot about what's to come. That's going to work itself out.
All right, that is great advice. We're going to take another break, and we will be right back. Welcome back, Pack. We are still hanging with our guest, Dr. Schuler. We've heard a lot about your work as superintendent, a little bit about your middle school self, but I'd love to dig into some of the things you like to do in your free time, what little it seems that you have. I know you and your wife have 2 college-age kids, probably coming back home any minute, I'd imagine. So what sort of things do you like to do with your kids when they're back at home?
One, we love just spend time with them at home. So surprisingly, I think as your kids grow and they go to college, that just having them back in the house is an absolute blessing. So when they're home and when we're lucky enough to have them home together, we love to just cook. Have some family meals again, hang out, talk, watch movies, just be around each other.
Now, I know that you are a Hoosier, an IU alum. Do either of your kids attend Indiana?
I could not get either of them to go to Indiana. I tried, and it just didn't happen.
Now, I assume that you were pretty pumped this year when Indiana won the national championship. But how do you feel about Indiana having a better football team than basketball team? That must feel a little strange.
I tell people all the time that Indiana's a football school. It's not a basketball school. But it's weird because when I went to school there, it was definitely a basketball program. That was kind of still. It
era?
was end of that era, the highlight of kind of their basketball years. So it's strange, but to be honest, I'm just happy to kind of see them in the headlines, and certainly what I know for the university is a successful football program has brought a lot of attention back to the school, and I think that's good for the university.
Do you get back to the campus very often?
I've gotten back a couple of times. I try to go now. I've gone to a football game at least once a year. Had the great fortune luck of going to the national championship game this year.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
Got to see him win it. It was fun.
That's amazing. Now, I heard from some inside sources that you're a pretty big country music fan. Let's pretend you're going back to your car today after this interview. Who are you turning on?
I like Kenny Chesney. I like a little bit of Luke Combs. I'll listen to really anybody that's on the radio. I think for me at least, music in general is a good kind of relaxer when I'm in the car. I think especially as I'm leaving work, headed home, it generally just sort of helps me transition from work brain to...
You have a lot of talking heads all day long.
do.
Yeah, you need something else.
I need sometimes to just kind of listen and sort of bring myself down a little bit.
As a music teacher, sometimes I'm the exact opposite. I've done music all day. I throw a podcast on, let someone just talk at me for that car ride home. I know that you're a big golfer, and you try to get out when you get a chance. Can you tell us a little about what's the nicest course that you've played?
I love to play at a course called Mistwood, which is down a little bit south of here. Probably the nicest course that I've ever played. I've played a few fun courses out in South Carolina. We like to spend a lot of time in South Carolina, and there's a course out there called Caledonia that is one of our favorites to play when we're out that direction.
Okay, I want you to release your humility for a moment here. Can you tell us about the best shot you've ever hit? Every golfer can tell the story, right?
Yeah. Most memorable is that I've had the good fortune of one hole-in-one in my golf time, and I remember vividly watching that go in the hole.
Do you have that ball like up on the wall somewhere?
I certainly do.
Okay. All right. One more question before we take another break. True confession, I've been pressured to ask this by some of my colleagues here at Hubble, so I cannot disappoint. Has anyone ever told you that you bear a passing resemblance to actor Matt Damon?
I have heard that.
Okay. We have a running joke here when you come to meeting. Oh, my God, that's Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
That's our standard. Okay, you have heard it, so it's not just us.
I have heard it, but when I come to the meeting next time, I actually want to hear it.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, I can make that happen. We are going to take one more break, and then it's time for Throw a Dog a Bone. Okay, Huskies, before we go, it's time for Throw the Dog a Bone. Each episode, we like to sign off by answering one completely random question. Dr. Schuler does not know the question I'm about to ask, and I have no idea what he's going to say, so it could get interesting. So, if you were in charge of the school district, you are, what holiday would you want to give a day off for all students, staff for the district? I'll give you a moment to think about it. I was just thinking about this. In March, the first day of March Madness, when it hits 11 a.m., pretty much every 7th, 8th grade boy I have is useless for the next 4 hours. So I wouldn't mind that first Thursday of March Madness being a day off and just let them go crazy with it. What do you think, Dr. Schuler?
Yeah, well, so we've spent a little time covering one of my favorite hobbies, which would be golf. So I can think of a couple of golf tournaments where I wouldn't mind that first day not being here in school, so I could watch it. Like if I could find my way down to the Masters ever, I think that'd be a good holiday.
I agree. All right. Before we head out, I do want to give you a chance, if you're willing or available, to update on some of the different middle school facilities constructions going on.
Yeah, so we're big projects that are underway. So at Monroe, Edison, Franklin, we've got some new additions that are underway, performing arts additions at Monroe and Franklin, an expansion of the gym at Edison, and then over the next 2 summers, really the entire interior of those buildings is getting a renovation and an upgrade. Science labs, library learning centers, offices, all classrooms are getting updated. There's really not much of the building that's not getting a makeover, and they're buildings that were in need. They've been around for a little while and needed both some functional improvement as well as some cosmetic mechanical improvement.
Well, I think our community is excited that is going to take place, and we appreciate you being on the show. Husky Hotseat listeners, thank you for listening. We want to thank our guest, Dr. Schuler, for his time. If you see him around the Hubble community, say hello, maybe ask him about something you heard on the show. I bet he would talk about IU football or his hole-in-one. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Husky Hotseat Podcast for updates about the show. And if you liked what you heard on Husky Hotseat, remember to subscribe to the show. We're available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else you like to listen to podcasts. If you really want to help the show grow, please leave a review on your podcast app of choice. And finally, spread the news about the show to people you know. The internet is great, but the goal of Husky Hotseat is to build connection within our Hubble community. So the more staff, parents, and students that listen, the tighter we become. Remember, Huskies, none of us are lone wolves. We work best in a pack. See you after the summer.